Okay, these are pocket edition abridged biographies on the Beatles, one of the world's most famous rock bands. These are really good. They don't really go into heavy detail, but they do give you a short version on each of the Beatles' lives, going through everything from childhood through their time in the Beatles and even their solo careers. So that's really neat. It talks about their relationship with one another and everything. There's one part I'd like to read from, well, this is John Lennon's biography. So let's see if I can find it. Okay. Oh, this is chapter 14, if you could see this. And thank Christ it's over. Okay, so it says, how different could have John Lennon's life been? This is probably a senseless hypothetical exercise, but let's transfer to a parallel dimension for just a few minutes. Sean Connery failed his screen test for Dr. No. Cassius Clay didn't beat the count when knocked down by Henry Cooper in the summer '66. Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch topped the US 100, the first British act to do so since the Tornadoes. And at the same time, John Lennon quits the Beatles and also ran Beat Group, opted instead for hand-to-mouth existence as a jobbing commercial artist back in Liverpool. A mixed media, for a while he's on the periphery of the Liverpool scene, a mixed media aggression before the supplementary chat with Arthur Ballard lands him a post as a technician in Ballard's department at the college. And his marriage to Cynthia deteriorates. John becomes a fixture at Ye Crack, still a student pump, and also rambles with rueful, misplaced pride about the Beatles. Okay. Achievements on the maudlin evening, he brings his photo album. There's Us with Tony Sheridan, and me with George with Ringo Starr at the top 10. Ringo was in Georgie Flame's Blue Flames later on, you know. Most regulars find both John's reminiscences and pictures mind-stunningly boring. For beer, money, and a laugh, Lennon reforms the Beatles for bookings in local watering holes. They become peculiar to Liverpool alone as Mickey Finn, a comedian unknown nationally but guaranteed work as long as he can stand on Merseyside. A typical engagement is providing music after Finn's entertainment and dinner and dance at the Galker Labour Club on December 8, 1980. The group's personnel for the night consists Pete Best, deputy manager at the Garston Job Centre, on drums, George Harrison, Southport curate, on guitar, and Paul McCartney, Radio Merseyside presenter and amateur songwriter, on bass. Lennon, his singing voice darker and attractively shorn of its 60s ingenuity, now a slightly batty art lecturer who'd wed a Japanese performance artist he'd seen at a '67 happening at the college. The four leave the dancing audience, wanting more, and after a finale of the 1965 Oriole B-side, I'm a Loser, during which Lennon accommodated suitable and often amusing gestures, facial expressions, as well as wailing endlessly inventive harmonica, he displayed a commendable sense of historical perspective during the humorous continuity. Meanwhile, George delivered workmanlike solos and Paul sent frissions through middle-aged females' nervous system, pretty till there was you. But there was more unsung hero of the night was Pete, ministering obtrusively to overall effect in his way of virtuoso. Brought back for an encore, the Beatles affirm their staying power once more, but their few records ever sold much beyond Merseyside, and an MCable danceable live act. They've outlasted most of the local bands, and there's reason they're to around in the next millennium. Okay, Unreal Life isn't like that, but at least it wasn't for John, whose unmeasurable fame and had accorded him a magnificent, godlike certainty about everything he said and did for invisible armies of fans, old, new, whose adoration will never dwindle, as pressured denizens of the media cobbled together hasty obituaries on the morning of December 9th, 1980. One of the most memorable comments any of them reported was recently retired Arthur Ballard. I think his death more significantly of any leading politician, like Michelangelo, he has never been forgotten. Neither will John Lennon be. Shall we try again with an interview with John Winston Lennon, MBE, retired musician and composer at Fort Belvedere, Sunnydale, Berkshire, on December 9th, 2002. To the click-clack of his own approaching footsteps, former Beatles sings what sounds to be softly spreads the grunion thinner from Our Saviour's feet to the tune of Johnny Todd. Titled to the old BBC television series Z-Cars. Welcome to the intersanctuary, he begins. Better not shake hands. I've just given the old feller a swift deco at the scenery. My MBE's on the wall, in the bog, you know. Best place for it. I only asked the Queen back to cheer up my auntie during her last illness. Do I seem larger than life? Don't worry, that'll change as this chat progresses. I'm an ordinary, modest, boring, and all too humble human. That arsehole winged me outside the Dakota in 1980. Quite spoiled Christmas, it did. Though it was that other gunslinging who did it for Reagan in 82 that finally put a tin lid on my American period. I miss New York sometimes, and I got pissed off recently with Berkshire County Council, whoever they are, when they turned up their noses at the plans to modernize this place. Used to belong to Edward and Mrs. Simpson, don't you know? All the same, I'm unlikely to live out of England ever again, and especially since getting back together with Sin and his holiness down in Sussex, even if the old chart-busting magic isn't there anymore. Never mind, we made our contribution to society 100 times over in the 60s, and I reckon now that the four of us should be put out to the grass as soon as we split up the first time, but the game dragged on, didn't it? And now I think, thank Christ, it's over. Live Aid was a laugh, but proved that was looking forward into the past isn't healthy. A bunch of musicians, let alone Paul George and Pete. Anyway, I wouldn't want to be an 80-year-old Beatle. I thought that was a very interesting way to end John Lennon's biography. There's an interesting one in Ringo's. And it's very interesting. I go along with whatever is happening. In April 2003, the latest Ringo Starr album, Ringo Rama, was unleashed. Almost... Yes, I'm in my room. All reviews were... I don't think so. Were favorable, noting that he had written or co-written every track himself, and that it was an artist doing something that was good, that he was good at, even if he was too old to learn new tricks. Record Collector concluded that this effort deserves much higher chart placing than the one it will probably get. How different could his life have been? Ringo himself once agreed. If I hadn't taken the chance and gone to the Butlands and joined the Beatles, I'd be on the shop floor as a fitter. I'm not a strong-willed person. I go along with what is ever happening. Possibly he'd have struck with Rory Storm to the bitter end, or joined some luckier local outfit, thereby recouping more golden memories from the Mersey beat craze before drifting back to Liverpool, privately relieved, perhaps to return to normality. What if King Harold had won the Battle of Hastings? What if Adolf Hitler had been strangled at birth? And what if Elvis had been cross-eyed? What if the Beatles had passed their Decca audition? Let's concern ourselves with the facts. When the graph of Richard Starkey's life gave a sharp turn upward, in 1962, he blossomed as if made for the success that, in the long term, denied him maturity. In the teeth of uncritical adulation of Beatlemania, never was his character tested more thoroughly and found sound. More important to the Beatles than his drumming, acting, and singing was his graduation from passenger to the one who kept them on the rails. To the late Bob Wooler, the cavern disc jockey, who said he was their only working-class hero. The lad still living in the dingle when he was a hit parader. Lennon, on the other hand, was very much a privileged person. With his millions, Ringo behaved like any other disadvantaged lad who won the pools, the rolls, the flashy clothes, diamond rings, the champagne, and the sexy model, the tax exile, and Monte Carlo. When the Beatles went sour, he spent less time on anything constructive than just mucking about, albeit with extraordinary panache. If it matters to him, he can die easily in the knowledge that his name will remain most likely to trip off the tongue of whenever pop percussionists are discussed by lay people. And if a ballroom is ever built on Mars, you can bet even money that the sound-checking drummers will still be hailed "Oi Ringo" by its janitor. I thought that was a very interesting way to end Ringo's. So these are really good books. Yeah.